In today's episode of Today in World War II, Italian frogmen make an incredible raid against the British in Alexandria, Egypt. The RAF makes its own raid against a French port where a German battleship is moored. Adolf Hitler makes it official. He ain't listening to no German generals anymore the rest of the war. Um, in Russia, the Soviet Union, German Field Marshal makes one last gasp attempt to rescue the Sixth Army from Stalingrad. And finally, the Germans capture 9,000 U.S. troops in the Ardennes. Let's get started. Okay, this is one of my favorite stories of the war. On December 19th, 1941, Italian frogmen uh, literally rode torpedoes. They were delivered to up to the harbor by Italian submarines. There were so there's six of them with six torpedoes. Rode them like a Brahma bull, I suppose, only without the resistance in the middle of the night, and they got underneath two British battleships. Now, these were World War I era battleships, but nevertheless, they were still in service and they were still very valuable for convoy duty. So they parked these torpedoes under the battleships and then swam to shore. And they were actually captured before the torpedoes exploded. And they tried to warn the British to evacuate the crews, but the British thought, no, that's not, we don't believe you. Well, they did. The torpedoes went off. And boy, talk about getting bang for your buck, sacrificing six commandos with a lot of experience, but I mean, I think the Italians would have taken that all day long. British lost two ships. Now they were able re to repair them. I mean, of course, they had to refloat them, and then they repaired them. But it was a very bad time in the war in the Mediterranean, and for a significant period of time in the future, the British did not have a single capital ship, i.e., battleship, in the Eastern Mediterranean, and they ceded the advantage to the Italian Navy. Had the Italian Navy been a little bit more aggressive, that might have been a huge deal. But they were the Italians after all in World War II, so the aggressiveness wasn't in their dictionary. But still, bravo to the Frogmen for doing that amazing raid. It still just gives me chills when I think about it. What also gives me chills is every time I see that someone has subscribed to this YouTube channel. And all you have to do is just click the subscribe button and then click on the little bell that instructs YouTube to notify you whenever I drop a new video. So please do me a solid and do that. Okay, on December 19th, 1940, the RAF conducted a daring raid with 41 Manchester bombers, and they went after the French port of Brest. Their goal was to damage the gates to the dock where the German battlecruiser Scharnhorst was getting repairs done. The You gotta imagine these submarine pens, these dry docks, and everything having to do with keeping the German Navy going and getting them in and getting them out. That was all. I mean, it was protected very heavily by fighters and by an amazing array of anti-aircraft positions all over the approaches. So it was crazy they even tried it, but it was great that they did it because, as far as the British were concerned, they didn't want those ships out in the sea lanes taking out their merchant vessels. So they were going to do whatever it took to keep them inside. In this case, they were able to damage that dock so badly that they kept the Scharnhorst in dock for another month. They lost a lot of fighters. They lost a lot of bombers, but still, I guess the British thought that was still worth it. So, hey, one thing you can't say about the Brits, you can't say they weren't aggressive and they weren't daring in their warfare against the Germans in World War II. So, what is also daring and full of praise on your part is if you like this video and leave a comment, because that's what makes the algorithm work. And by doing that, you work it in my favor, and I can get this feed into more people's, or my videos into more people's feeds, and that's really what we want. Okay. So I really appreciate that. On December 19th, 1941, Adolf Hitler decided that he was going to become the commander in chief of the German army. And I think that's what you want. When you're fighting a war, a two-front war now, you just declared war on the United States when you didn't really have to. You're fighting against the Soviet Union, you're fighting against the Brits, you're soon to be fighting against the Americans. I think that at that critical juncture of the war, you want to have a person in charge of the German military who was a corporal in World War One. Yes, but hold on. Maybe he made some good decisions. Let's see. So, what was his first decision on his first day? He said that there would be no more retreat available for German troops. So, with that one fell swoop, in this case, having to do with the German offensive in against Moscow that had bogged down, uh, all he did was condemn troops, his first class troops to die in positions because they could not maneuver. Apparently, he didn't understand that you could, save your men to fight another day, and to husband whatever strength you had was important when you're going to be going against the Soviet horde. But it made no sense to leave your troops to wither and die on the vine, which you couldn't replace anyway. Smart, very smart. Okay, on December 19th, 1942, Erich von Manstein, General Manstein, made a very admirable attempt to break through Soviet defenses and relieve Stalingrad and be able to give General von Paulus's Sixth Army a way out. He got as close as 30 miles, and at that time, he couldn't get any closer, but the idea then was by the general staff was to give von Paulus permission to have his army try to strike and break through on their end, so that we have pressure on both sides. Um, I don't I don't know if this will be a shock to you, but Hitler said no. He said, nope, nope, nope. They're gonna have to hold until they die. 250,000 men went into Stalingrad. 105 were taken prisoner. Do you think they could have used those 105 troops to make better use in the future? You just let them go, which is again a corporal mentality. Finally, on December 19th, 1944, this is a continuation of the Germans' offensive in the Ardennes forest in Belgium. This is the Battle of the Bulge going on right now. The Germans captured 9,000 U.S. troops that they had surrounded on the German-Belgian border. So they took a lot of prisoners in the first days of the Battle of the Bulge, as I've already chronicled in earlier videos here. But it wasn't, only demoralized, not very well trained troops that they were bagging in great numbers. The Eisenhower gave the order to send the United States Airborne Division and the reserves and the 10th Armored Division of of Patton's Third Army to go into Bastogne to hold that, because Bastogne was a key crossroads to to keep the Germans at bay, because the Germans were trying to break through, first of all, get to all the huge fuel dumps that the Allies had, and then after that, go and take Amsterdam and drive a wedge between the Americans and the British, and somehow that was going to win the war in the West. Delusional, but that was the goal. Well, by sending the first the 101 Airborne and tanks from the 10th Armored Division, there was just enough to get inside the Bastogne and resist. And we'll see next couple days, next few days in this chronicle what happened there. But that's what happened today on December 19th, 19 in the World War II. I appreciate you watching my video, and I look forward to dropping another one tomorrow.